And in fact, I'm actually kind of interested in what you think the experience has been like at a place like MSNBC. I know a number of people over there that are great, but there's obviously a lot of people who are openly hostile to the idea of gun ownership, especially the level that you practice it. And so I wonder, how has that experience been?
It's been really interesting, Stephen. I've been on MSNBC for a long time now, talking about politics, articulating some of my conservative views. And, sometimes people don't agree with me, but I've always found, and I've done CNN, I've done Fox as well. Mm-hmm. And what I've always found as I've sort of matured in politics is that in order to enlighten people, in order to educate people, I can't only talk to people who I know will naturally agree with me. I can go on Fox News and share my conservative underpinnings. And for the most part, people will probably agree. They may want me to be more ferocious in my articulation, or maybe some may say, well, we need you to be more aggressive. I don't think that that's a place in politics right now. The country's too divided as it is. But the principles they would agree with. And that's great. And it's great to get the pats on the back. It's great to get the applause. But I think a part of the problem that we have in our country, man, is that no darn body's talking to each other anymore. Everybody's in their own silos. I only want to talk to people who are going to agree with me. Well, that's great. But how do you construct change if you're not having difficult, complicated conversations with people who differ? Yes, we're going to debate like hell. Yes, there will be some things we just cannot ever agree on because of principles. But we have to figure out a way to move forward. And the only way to do that is to be in places that are naturally against many of your views, trying to articulate why your views are important, and to hopefully win some people over. And believe it or not, man, I've had many times on MSNBC talking about various issues where I've had anchors say, Shermichael, that's a really good point. I can't even disagree with that. Or where I've had other commentators who are Democrats say, Shermichael's actually right about that. Democrats have a problem here, or Shermichael's right about this idea. I think Republicans have a good position here. I don't like the way they're going about it, but I think he has a good point. And so you would be surprised with the progress you can make over time when you're talking to people and you're listening to them and you're both learning from each other and you both accept that we may not agree on everything. And that goes to the gun thing. I've been on quite a bit talking about firearms, and sometimes people just don't agree. Many times people just don't agree. But when they listen to the rationality behind my positions and they understand my position as a black gun owner, not to throw a race into it, but I think there's a unique history coming from the African-American culture as it pertains to gun ownership in this country, and why I personally feel an affinity to maintain my Second Amendment rights and to want to encourage other Americans, specifically black Americans in particular, to maintain their Second Amendment rights through training and education in a responsible way. And when you articulate that, it's really difficult for people to be against it. Now, they will disagree. It's that, I don't like that type of gun. I don't think people should have that gun. I don't think people should have this, that, et cetera. But they still have the conversation. And in having those conversations, my hope, Stephen, has been, when I've been on to talk exclusively about firearms, is that by educating people, I know I'm not going to win everyone. And that's not the goal. The goal is never to win everybody, but the goal is to win enough people where you somewhat open the door of a question mark. And if the question mark is open, then you've captured a potential new audience where you can begin to have the complicated conversations about how do we preserve the Second Amendment rights for everybody, while also addressing some of the problems that we have in our country, such as mental illness, with our young men that we're seeing all over the place, bullying in school, with our kids, how to address inner city violence and the increasing violence in many inner cities across the board, where our young, again, typically young men are harming themselves, each other and others in their community. How do we have those tough, complicated conversations while still saying that we want to maintain the right for people to have AR-style weapons and pistols? How do we do that? That's not an easy conversation. It's an uncomfortable conversation. But I think through education, I think through logic, I think through rationality, we can get there. And so that's been my experience on MSNBC. I never expect to win everyone over. But for the most part, it's been positive. I have had some rough moments, and that's to be expected, right? When you're in an environment that is sort of foreign to your disposition from their perspective. But you accept it and you say there's a bigger goal here. And that bigger goal is to try to have cross conversations across ideological lines to be able to move something forward, because that's the only way we move forward.
Right, certainly. And I think that this is one of the reasons that we make sort of natural friends here, is because we share a similar worldview in that sense. I mean, I just had Ryan Busey from Giffords on to talk about his book where he's, describes his transformation from gun salesman to gun control activist. And I didn't agree with a lot of things he had to say, but it didn't mean that I wanted to shut him out or shut him down, right, and keep him from explaining his point of view. I might question it. I might have difficult questions, honestly, for him, but I felt like it's much more worthwhile to have a discussion with someone than to just try and yell over them or scream at them. And so, I appreciate that point of view that you're talking about here. And I think a lot of our listeners want more stuff like that, because we see in a lot of media sort of the exact opposite, right?